What's good, y'all? Anderson Emerald here to talk very quickly about the World Relays, which for 2026 and 2028 has been announced in terms of the locations by World Athletics. 2026, we're going to see it go down in Gaborone, Botswana, the capital city there. And then in 2028, we're going to see it go down in Nassau, Bahamas, also the capital city, of course. And that will be leading into the 2028 Olympic Games. Now, these two announcements were pretty interesting to me, as a few weeks ago, I was actually planning, I have a whole script out of, why Botswana actually put in a bid to host the World Relays. This was probably in like February. They had put in their bid and they were looking to be able to bring the World Relays to the country in 2026. But now, of course, it's officially announced that it's going to be going down. So first off, with Botswana, this is the fourth time that any global championships for World Athletics, or IAAF back in the day, is going to be hosted on the continent of Africa. So we have the 2026 World Relays. We also had the 2021 World U20 Championships that went down in Nairobi, Kenya. Then back in 2017, we saw the World Youth Championships at the time is what they called it. That also went down in Nairobi, Kenya. And then in 2017 in Uganda, they had the World Cross Country Championships. So few and far between in terms of the global championships that World Athletics, or IAAF, has hosted across the entire continent. Now, that is in tandem with the Diamond League that was added to Morocco, I think in 2015 or 2016. It kind of replaced the New York City Diamond League. You also have Continental Tour meetings held in Nairobi, Kenya, in Botswana, of course, as well. Those are more recent additions in, I think, 2021 and then also 2023 for Botswana. So you do have a couple different events that have gone down across the continent as a whole, but there's still a lack of major competitions going down. There's no talk right now of a World Championships happening. There maybe was some, in Kenya at some point, but I don't think those conversations are truly occurring. You've seen things about the Olympics potentially happening, whatever it may be in South Africa, but Africa doesn't get as much representation in terms of major athletic events. And then even to a degree, like I said, Continental Tour meetings in Kenya as well as Botswana. Botswana actually didn't even happen last year, I think, if I'm correct, because there were some issues with the government and things like that. Also, the Diamond League, yes, it happens in Morocco, but when you're talking about sub-Saharan Africa, going down to, again, Kenya, whether it's Nigeria, or whether it's Botswana, wherever it may be, you don't see those major opportunities for countries. And one good thing about the World Relays coming in 2026 to Botswana is that I think it's going to be able to, bring more attention to the athletics, arena when talking about sports development, when talking about opportunities for athletes across the board in the Southern African region. And I want to give a caveat that South Africa does tend to have a lot more development when it comes to putting on different meets, when it comes to track and field, but we don't see it across Southern Africa generally when talking about Botswana, when talking about Zambia, Zimbabwe, Namibia, or even Malawi. How often do you hear about athletes or athletics in Malawi as a whole? And of course, there's structural issues, there's, governmental issues, there's various different issues that do, lend itself to not producing, enough structure for a major athletics event to be held. So I do like the fact that Botswana, Gaborone getting the chance to host the World Relays in 2026 will allow for more hopeful development in the region. So that's one thing that I do find pretty interesting. And the other thing that I also found interesting, I'm thinking about it now, is that I couldn't find any other countries that were bidding, or countries or cities that were bidding for the 2026 World Relays. I was trying to do research when I was looking, putting a video together for Botswana, putting in a bid, but I didn't find any other countries. Now, this may have been an under the table kind of discussion. Maybe there were other countries that bid, but they just didn't make it public. Who knows? But that was something interesting that I did find. Again, I have no complaints about Botswana hosting. I love to see it. Now, on the flip side, the 2028 World Relays is going to be going down in Nassau, Bahamas. And this is actually the fifth time that the Bahamas will be hosting the World Relays. They hosted the inaugural event in 2014. They then did it again in 2015. They then followed up in 2017. 2019, it went to Yokohama, Japan. 2021, it went to Poland. And then 2024, we actually saw it once again in Nassau, Bahamas. So now we're going to get a chance to see it for the fifth time in Bahamas in 2028. Now, this one, there's two conversations I have. One, this is really exciting. I think a lot of people have been saying that, the World Relays maybe should stay in the Caribbean, right? It should stay in the Bahamas, or go to Jamaica, or go to, somewhere in the Caribbean, because that culture of course, sprinting as a whole, which is, what the World Relays focuses on with the 4x1, 4x4 mixed relay, right? Unfortunately, no more distance relays. They should bring the DMR or the 4x8 back, whatever it is. But, you do see many people saying the Caribbean is able to foster that culture of course, tons and tons of sprinting talent, but also the crowds, the energy, the culture, all of that really lends itself to an event like the World Relays. On top of that, because the Bahamas has been able to be successful hosting it in 2014, 15, 17, and 2024, let's continue it on, right? Let's get that culture going. It's great to be able to see it move around to different places, but people have been advocating for the Bahamas to, consistently have it. But on the flip side, I do know with good understanding that Mount Sac was actually interested in hosting the World Relays in 2028. Why? Remember, 2028 is the Olympic Games, which will be going down in Los Angeles, California. So they were thinking that potentially having the World Relays in Mount Sac would then be a good, boost to, bring some attention to the Southern California region, and then also kind of lead into the Los Angeles Olympic Games, kind of capitalize off that momentum and things like that. So who knows exactly what may or may not have occurred. Maybe, there was no official bid. Maybe there was a bid and things went under the table. I don't actually know. Maybe there was stadium issues. Who knows, right? But I do find it interesting that similar to, like I noted for 2026, there was no official, bidding process or anything like that for these different cities or nations that might have wanted to host the World Relays or anything like that. And maybe that's just how things are gonna look as we kind of move forward in terms of, cities being announced as, hosts for World Relays, World Championships, whatever it may be. We now see that, of course, we have Tokyo, we have Beijing for the World Championships in 2027. That kind of came, relatively early, I think, in terms of the timeline. We'll see how things kind of do move forward. But found that to be pretty interesting, though I am pretty excited to have the World Relays back in the Bahamas. Again, Botswana, Bahamas, that's gonna be a really good opportunity for athletes across, those specific regions, Caribbean for Bahamas, and then also Southern Africa in terms of Botswana, to be able to, further develop their athletics, presence across the board. And specifically in Southern Africa, where that representation just isn't there as much in terms of global, athletic events occurring in Southern Africa, but then just like athletics recognition and then athletics talent being able to be cultivated across the board. Think of the young athletes that we have in Southern Africa right now, between, of course, Latiya Teboho, between, of course, Muzala Samokonga, right? And again, to a degree, I'm slightly separating South Africa. Of course, it's part of, Southern Africa, not to say it in any capacity is, separated, but they do tend to have a more developed, athletics program and more recognition across the board. But like I said, how many times have you heard of an athlete from Malawi? When is the last time that you heard an athlete from Zambia, like Muzala Samokonga, getting onto a podium? Literally not since, 1996, I think, with Samuel Mutete. So there's a lot more development to be had. Namibia, we haven't seen anyone since Frankie Fredericks, and of course, Christine Mboma and Beatrice Masalingi. But, just going on about Southern Africa, love to see the representation. Last thing before I talk about 300-meter hurdles is 2027 doesn't have a World Relays. And when I'm looking at this, this report that World Athletics put out, I'm not exactly sure why they don't have a World Relays in 2027. With the understanding that the World Relays has been used as a qualifier for the 2024 Olympic Games to Paris, the 2025 World Championships in Tokyo this year, and then, in 2028, the Olympic Games there. So is it going to be slightly different where there's not going to be a qualifier for the Beijing World Championships in 2027, or are the 2026 World Relays going to be used as a qualifier for the following year? Not exactly sure. And it kind of does, bring up, I guess, a question of how is World Athletics planning to use the World Relays? We're seeing them introduce the mixed 4x1, which isn't going to be an official event for now. I don't know. There was a video I did a couple while back where I actually said that they may not, it'd be crazy if they brought a mixed 4x1. I'll put the clip here.
But I think moving into the future, we could be seeing more emphasis on this mixed relay and less focus on the 4x4. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if in a few Olympic cycles, we see the mixed 4x4 closing out the Olympic program. Maybe even a mixed 4x1. Nah, that'd probably be too crazy, but
yeah, so I don't know. We'll see how they're actually choosing to use the World Relays. If it's just going to be a standalone event to bring excitement, to, promote the relays. If that's the case, then bring back 4x1, 4x8, bring back DMR, bring back some of these other ones. Or if they're actually going to utilize it as a qualifier, which then begs the question, why is it not part of the 2027 calendar? Maybe they're going to bring it in the future. But last thing I do want to note is the 300-meter hurdle. So it was officially added, or, they're saying, quote, the 300-meter hurdles will become an official event forming part of the competition rules and technical rules. As such, it will serve all World Athletics statistical purposes, including world rankings, towards which it will score as a similar event to the 400-meter hurdles. Now, what this means is this will allow athletes to compete in the 300-meter hurdles. Maybe more meets will put it on. And if you compete in those events, you will then be able to add to earn world ranking points and all these other qualifiers towards the 400-meter hurdles. This does not mean that the 300 hurdles is being added to the World Championships or to the Olympic Games. This also does not mean that you're going to see world records in the 300-meter hurdles, right? There's still going to be world bests eventually, maybe depending on the frequency that these events do occur, specifically the 300-meter hurdles. Then you might see world records, eventually added to the books. It says a list of world best performances will be kept, while conditions for setting an inaugural world record will be decided at a later stage once the popularity of the event will have reached a meaningful level. So again, you're not going to see world records immediately. Now, this is one of the, I don't know how frequently this event is actually contested. We did see Carson Warholm in the past couple years actually, run the 300-meter hurdles early in the season. He set the world record. You also have Femke Bol. She has the world record in the 300-meter hurdles, but this is not a frequently contested event. Very similar to the 300, which isn't frequently contested, but that is an actual official event, even though there's a world best. Why? Because if you look on World Athletics rules, the 300 will allow you to earn points and kind of be connected to the 400-meter dash. So that's how things are made official. That's how things are, not made official. If someone runs a 200-meter hurdles, if someone runs a 150-meter race, those don't count at all because those are not official events. But something like the 300, something like the 2000, something like the 1000, those aren't contested at the World Championships or the Olympic Games, but those are official events because they can earn you points and be connected to one of the official events, whether that's the 3K, the 5K, the 800, the 400, whatever it may be. So it's interesting. I don't know if this is much news. I don't know why they're going out the way to, create the 300-meter hurdles as an official event. Again, bring back something like the DMR, bring back something like the 4x8. I mean, I don't know, bring those to World Relays instead of some of these things. It's really interesting, the decisions that World Athletics has chosen to make. Some are good, some are interesting, some are bad, but it is what it is. So go in the comments. Just wanted to, kind of chat through some of these things. As you can see, I'm in a different location right now. I'm in a hotel in Kingston, Jamaica, covering champs. We're holding it down for CDS Mag. Crazy, week so far, but definitely subscribe to CDS Mag on, of course, YouTube, but then also Instagram, on Twitter, across the board, because we'll have a lot of different things coming out. And then on my end as well, definitely follow me on Instagram, on Twitter, if you're not already. I know all these different platforms, they kind of like to keep people siloed in their different locations, like specifically on YouTube. I know myself, I use YouTube very, very heavily, but, kind of branch out, trying to make sure that, you get a lot of coverage across the board. But as always, let me know what you think about the World Relays in 2026 and 2028 going down in Botswana as well as Bahamas respectively. And then also let me know what you think about the 300-meter hurdles. Is this a relevant, addition to an official event? Or should it be added to World Champ? I don't know. Whatever it is, let me know what you think. Be sure to like the video if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel. Always appreciate y'all. Thanks for watching.